Mr. Chairman, it's ironic that this hearing is called the USAID Betrayal because Donald Trump betrayed USAID. He betrayed the agency's mission and its employees. He betrayed the American workers and the businesses supported by USAID contracts, and he betrayed the literal starving children who rely on food from USAID to stave off hunger. I'd like to highlight a few of the groups that Republicans are leaving out in the cold with this freeze. Let's start with the USAID employees. Americans around the world, they feel abandoned by our government, saying, quote, "We have lost contact with Washington. We are on our own." Some USAID employees, again Americans, have been forced to flee the country where they worked after protests over frozen aid turned violent. What does it say about us when we turn our backs on our own citizens, these global helpers who are just doing their job? But the betrayal extends to every American worker who relies on USAID, including American farmers, manufacturers, and universities. In my home state, the University of Rhode Island works with USAID to improve aquatic food systems and fight food insecurity. Right now, the university is unable to access nearly $300,000 they are owed. Let me repeat, universities are being stiffed for work they have already completed. And that was before the funding freeze. What kind of government refuses to pay its debts? Might be a government led by a multi-time bankrupt billionaires, I suppose. But of all the people affected, the worst impact of this betrayal fall on those who rely on USAID for food and medical care. People are already dying because of the aid freeze. As you heard earlier, yesterday we learned that a 70-year-old woman in Thailand died because the aid freeze cut off her oxygen supply and her access to care. Whether from lack of medical attention or from starvation, more people will die because of Trump's decision, and my colleagues on the other side having a collective silence. It's mind-boggling. This food aid was funded. Some of it was already purchased. It is ready to feed starving people. As this Inspector General report finds, right here, before they were fired, USAID stopped work orders jeopardized nearly $500 million in food assistance, leaving 500,000 metric tons of American-grown food at risk of spoiling. Look, if DOGE wants to eliminate waste, it can start with the life-saving food that is literally rotting in our ports because of Trump's betrayal. This administration has failed us. It has compromised our national security. We beat our chests about national security. This is hurting it. Adversaries like China and Russia are salivating at our retreat. They are reaching out to our allies and partners to undermine our work across the world. Republicans are abandoning global health work. That's an insane decision after a global health pandemic that we've recently experienced. Right now, there's a deadly Ebola outbreak in Uganda, where more than a dozen Americans are exposed to this fatal virus. But where's the United States? Nowhere to be found. Look, I worked on President Obama's response to Ebola domestically and President Biden's response to COVID when I worked at the White House in 2 stints. And the number one lesson from the pandemic playbook is that we must contain the virus before it kills more people and makes its way to the United States. It is in our best interests to get involved. So I know I'm running short on time, but former Administrator Natsios, if you could answer quickly, do any of the betrayals that I have explained here today make America safer or promote America's values abroad?
I do believe that a robust foreign aid program, properly managed, is in our national interest. I wrote an article for Foreign Affairs that came out 2 weeks ago, February 7th, with a realist policy, not a liberal internationalist policy, on how we should run our aid program during this period of great power rivalry. The basic argument is that, humanitarian assistance and health should be based on need only. All the rest of it should be based on the following standards. One is there are 14 choke points in the high seas that control the food supply of the world. We should have aid missions in these countries. We do in Egypt. It's not just because Israel is security is connected to Egypt. It's because the Suez Canal is there. Morocco, they're not going to change the geography of the Gibraltar Straits. AID had a mission in Panama, and we left because it's a middle-income country. We should not have left, in my view. There should be a permanent mission in Panama because the Panama Canal is not going to go away. When we left, guess who moved in? The Chinese do. And who is upset with this now? Properly so, is the president. We should have had a large aid mission permanently in Panama. I went down there with my university, and they all wanted it. They didn't want us to leave. So I think we need to place our missions more strategically. The area around Russia and China are under severe stress. All of the Central Asian countries want a larger aid mission. You know, the Kazakhstan, we were going to move out, and the president said, we'll pay for half of it. I said, what? It's an aid program. He said, we don't want you to leave, Mr. Natsios. We want aid here. We want the United States here. And we value what you're doing, so we will pay from our gas revenues half of the cost of the aid program.